Know your goal. Kendra, welcome to the podcast. It is such an honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Now, I must admit, very few women I talk to who are in the finance sector and who love accounting, and you are definitely one amongst the few. So, what's your backstory like?
Yeah, definitely. You're absolutely right. One amongst a few. There's definitely male dominated industry, but so I went to school for corporate finance, and I only really minored in accounting because I knew it would make me more marketable. I actually really love the finance side, the strategy side. I'm not so in love with the accounting side, but because they go hand in hand, when I built out the firm later, I obviously had to build out both parts of it. But so yeah, I went to school for finance and accounting, graduated, climbed that corporate ladder, completely thought that I was going to stay in corporate. That was the goal. I was loving what I was doing. I always had amazing teams and bosses. And so yeah, I was in that corporate finance world and would sit in on these, boardroom meetings with, yes, a lot of men that were
Yeah,
CEOs and CFOs, and I would see their dialogue and their conversation with each other. And I just loved the dynamic that the CEO and the CFO had when they were making decisions about the business. And that's when my love for that relationship formed. But I realized that while in these boardrooms, they're making these million and billion-dollar decisions, there are business women who are starting their own businesses who are making drastic decisions as well, but have no support. They don't have that person that they can bounce numbers and ideas off of. And so that's when I took that boardroom conversation that I was having in corporate and created it for the businesswoman that's having their small business so that they could get that same kind of support.
but I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision to leave corporate America and start to do what you're doing because I've
Correct.
walked that path. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was not easy. It wasn't easy initially because I actually didn't think that it was going to be a business. I just thought it would be a few people that I was, women that I knew, and I was like, okay, I'll kind of step in and help them. It actually did become a lot easier of a decision after working with a few ladies for a few months and seeing the transformation with their business, which obviously, as you know, like if your business is doing really well, then personally you're doing well. If your business is failing and cash flow negative, then it hurts your personal life as well, right? So after several months of working with different women, I realized this is much bigger. Like GE is going to make billions of dollars whether I show up to work or not, right? They're
Very
going to
right.
make money.
Yeah.
But some of these women, their businesses were turning around so quickly. So after that point, it was a lot easier to make that transition because I knew it was impactful, and if it's impactful, then there's going to be a need for it and a demand for it. So it became a lot easier after I did it for a while.
Perfect. That's so nice. That's so great. And talking about end goal, did you already know this is what your end goal would look like?
Well, no, when when I was younger, like when I was in school and when I first graduated, my end goal was become a CFO of a large corporation, get a corner office with floor to ceiling windows and kick my feet up, like that's what I thought the end goal was for a very, very long time. Entrepreneurship isn't in my family. I didn't know any entrepreneurs personally, so it never really was an interesting thing for me. It kind of like fell in my lap in that situation. But then very quickly, once I started doing it full time, the end goal was to grow the business. Initially, the end goal was to grow the business, like scale it,
Yeah.
just blow up, get this huge team and, franchise it. And it was just all of these different ideas that I had because I just wanted to move really fast. So that was the end goal then, which now is a completely different end goal. But that was the end goal at
So
that
you're
time.
partly there, right? You're already the CEO of a company, like you said, but you're partly like on that same direction. And to these goals, like people, a lot of us, when we start a business or when we get into the workforce, the corporate world, you've been both, handling both. People have that, okay, this is where I want to reach. Now, eventually, does those goals change?
Yes, absolutely. I think sometimes some of the really large underlying goals are relatively the same over time, but the specifics I think do shift over time. So I've always wanted to kind of be in control of my time, right? But when I was in corporate America, that looked very different. My time was my weekends and my evenings. And I thought that was enough. Like, I'm in control of my weekends and my evenings. I don't work weekends. Like, I had friends that were in corporate that worked weekends. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I have control over my time. But then as I became an entrepreneur, I realized, okay, wait, I really have control over my time now. So it kind of shifted. So I do think that goals do change. And you want to check in with yourself, because sometimes we get so caught up in the doing that we don't pause to like reevaluate our goals. But always being aware of what your active goal is, what your current true goal is, definitely helps you move through the day to day.
Wow, that's nice. And I think, like you said, I had read somewhere that write your goals in pen and your plans in pencil, so that there's a change in your plan, and like you said, the goal will change once you've reached to a certain extent over there. Um,
Yes.
what are some of the things that one should keep in mind while trying to reach their goal?
It's almost like the why behind the goal. Because I think that, we um, sometimes can be really good at pulling these arbitrary goals because maybe we heard somebody else have the similar goal, or, and it's like, oh, I want to reach $1 million in sales in my business. But $1 million is so arbitrary. Like, why $1 million? Or why do you want to have a certain amount of money saved? Oh, it's because I want to put my kids through college. It's like, okay,
Mm,
great. You have a reason. Or, why do you want to retire in 5 years? Oh, because of this. So I think having the actual why behind the goal really matters, because the goal in and of itself is usually just like this measurable kind of thing that we can hit and then check off, and then great, we've checked it off. But if you've checked it off and that why behind it is now fulfilled, then it's a fulfilling goal. If I hit $1 million and I check it off, but it's tied to nothing, now I just want to hit $2 million.
But it's not
But you
so it's not so easy, right, to know your why, or is it?
I think it becomes easier as you create goals and check them out, or check them off, and they're not fulfilling. So we've all known or heard, or maybe even have been the person who maybe in corporate, you get in and you're like, I want to get to that position. I want to get promoted to that position. When I get promoted to that position, life is going to change. Then you get promoted to that position and you're like, life didn't change.
Yeah,
you know,
nothing. It's the same.
right? Like, this is just
Just
like, this
more
not
work.
any different. But so then you start to realize, like, okay, maybe I just, like, why did I want this position? Oh, I wanted this position because I thought I'd have more income, maybe I'd have a bigger team. And so then you start to actually dissect the why behind why that goal was even a goal in the first place. And then from there, you can kind of reevaluate what the goal really is. If the goal really is that you wanted to have a larger team for a specific reason, then let that be the goal.
Mm.
So I think after you have goals that you hit and you aren't really fulfilled by them, you start to dissect and understand what is it that you're really actually seeking, so you can reset your goal.
Okay. And you've been in the corporate world, you started your own entrepreneurship work. You've seen both the worlds. And I'm sure in both the worlds, there have been a lot of ups and downs that you have faced, particularly coming into the journey of moving from corporate world to the entrepreneurship. What are some of the ways in both these situations, in both these places, have you handled, the obstacles and moved ahead?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest was so when I first started the business, like I said, I was like hustle mode, working really hard, putting the same energy of nonstop work that I had in corporate into my business. And that was perfectly fine in the beginning. It was just me, my partner, no children. So, I was just able to kind of dedicate a lot of time. And then I had my son, and when I had my son, I thought that I had like prepared myself for this like maternity leave, and I was gonna, not have to work for like 4 months. We're entrepreneurs. You you can't really
You
step away for
can't.
4 months,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But in my mind, I was like, oh no, I'm prepared. I have this ready to go. And long story short, in that 4 months, I was definitely humbled to realize that okay, you can plan and be as strategic as possible. Nothing prepares you for being a parent, like especially a first time parent, that first time around.
Uh,
And so I had to actively, real time, shift the business and the priorities of the business. And I knew, okay, I can no longer work the way that I'm working. I can no longer put in the amount of time and hours and things that I was putting in. So that was a big shift for me that I thought I had prepared for, but I didn't. And so it was a huge life lesson because I'm learning it while also learning how to be a new mom. And that was a lot.
wow.
That was a lot. And it was during the pandemic. So it was like, oh my
And I
goodness.
think there is no guide that comes, when you're getting into a business, when you're getting into parenthood. There is no structured guide that can really help you because everybody's experience is so different.
Yes, 100%. So that did shift my mindset in business, and that's where like the whole peace and profits concept came up. It was during that time frame because before, admittedly, I'm in finance. I was always looking at businesses through the lens of profit, always. And now there's definitely this mixed component when I'm working with like my entrepreneurs on there's peace and there's profits. A business is not sustainable or scalable unless you have both peace and profits in your business. If you are working like crazy for the money and not thinking about the peace, it's just not going to work long term.
So does it actually work, peace and profits?
It actually does, like I said, coming from a finance person, peace is equally, if not more, important than the profits when it comes to the health of the individual and the health of the business and the health of the team. So it absolutely does work.
Okay. And what would be necessary to maintain the peace and the profits? Like, how does an individual make sure that they sleep well at night while also making the business run? Because many
Yes.
of these entrepreneurs, they're awake at night, they're early morning risers, want to check the phone. So, how do we make that sure?
It really does tie back to that knowing your end goal and like knowing what drives you, because there's different phases in life, and then there are just different people in general. So like there are some folks that I work with who are absolutely okay with checking their text messages and emails at 2 o'clock in the morning because it just feels good to like check in, and they're okay with that in this season. Give them 5 years, maybe not so much, but in this season they're okay with that. It makes them feel like they're making progress and pushing through something. And but then there are others who are like, listen, at 3 o'clock, I'm done for the day. I don't start until 10 in the morning. Like, so it's
Oh,
knowing what your goal is, knowing what's important to you in this particular season, and sticking to that. That's what's going to help you with the peace part, and the profits actually usually follows that, because when you have the energy and the love for your business, then the business is more successful. When you're drained and you don't even really want to check your emails or check in with your team, then it's harder for that business to get that momentum.
wow. So, how long have you been now doing your entrepreneurship?
It's been since 2016, so about 8 years.
So, in these 8 years, have you ever had to revisit your business, make those changes, come up with new things?
Yes, yeah. I mean, that was really the biggest time was when I had my son about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. That was the biggest shift, because before that, I was just moving, 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 launching different things. But then once he came, it completely shifted, and I just focused in on what's really working, which is the accounting and the fractional CFO side. And um, I don't get the shiny object syndrome like I used to, right? Where something new will pop up or a
Yeah,
new idea just
SOS.
kind
Yeah.
of just focus in, focus in, and that's just worked really well for us.
That's good because a lot of entrepreneurs, what happens is, not only entrepreneurs, even in the corporate world, we have the shiny object syndrome where we feel it's not this, it's that, we need to go there, and everything just looks so lucrative that you want to grab it at that moment. But like you said, it's the focus to the end goal that actually puts you up there.
Yes, absolutely. Because there's going to be something new and what, seems exciting that's going to show up all the time. And you don't want to go forward in something and get a lot of forward progress in something just to put it on the shelf for something new and then get forward progress, and you'll never get anything to completion. So if you just focus in through, get it to completion, and then maybe perhaps once that's done, or at least going to a speed that it's kind of self-sufficient, then maybe you can look into something else. But you just don't want to have 20 active things that you're putting your energy and your finances and time into.
Right. And when you put it, when you're progressing on it and then you put it on the shelf, then when you come back, it's like a whole work to start again. It's not that
Exactly.
simple. It's more hard work then as it was when you started off.
Yes. And not to mention like morale. Like if you have a team and the team collectively is working, and they get 80% there just for you to say, oh, nope, that's not the
Yeah.
priority anymore. Let's
Yeah.
now pick up this. It kind of just diminishes the morale on the team.
It does, yeah, that's true. But this has been such a great conversation. Kendra, before we wrap up, what would be your advice to people who want to succeed in their career life?
I would say, well, I guess I would say know your end goal. Know your end goal and focus, just understand that we're all in different seasons of our lives, so things might change and shift. But if you just really check in with yourself and try to block out the noise of like what you hear other people say or think, and really think about what you're feeling. If you check in with yourself often, then you will be well suited to be able to like make progress the way that you want to make it, and not maybe the way that other people think that you should make it. So just kind of check in with yourself and know what your end goal is.
Yeah, I like that word, check in with yourself, check in on yourself. Something that we usually don't do. We're not self-aware of what we want. And I think that's where the piece goes out of the entire equation. When you say
Yes.
peace and profits, I love that word, peace and profits. It's just so wonderful, to make sure that you are peaceful while you are achieving what you want to achieve. And I think that's so missing. That's why we have so much of these, mental health issues these days with anybody who's trying to achieve their end goals.
Yes, yes. Way too much focus on the money side. The money will come, but what good is money if you aren't actually living a life that's fulfilling? It's not going to help you get to where you want. So you have to understand both sides of it for sure.
That is so nice. And thank you so much, Kendra. It's been really an honor, and you've been so kind enough to share your experience, your pitfalls, and the journey with all of us. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And this one's for our listeners. This is Kendra and Payal Nanjiani wishing you loads of success in your career life. God bless each of you.